In the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verses 16 through 25, it reads, "And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. But he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. The rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand." So ends the reading of the word. Addict named Christopher. According to Daniel chapter 8, the angel Gabriel explicitly interprets the vision for Daniel. The ram with 2 horns represents the kings of Media and Persia, while the shaggy goat represents the kingdoms of Greece. The large horn on the goat is the first king, Alexander the Great, and the 4 horns that replace it represents the 4 kingdoms that emerged after his empire was divided. The ram, Medo-Persia, represented with 2 horns, one higher than the other, symbolizing the union of Media and Persia, with the Persians being the more dominant power. The ram pushed westward, northward, and southward, expanding its influence. The goat, Greece, represented by a swift, powerful goat from the west with a single conspicuous horn. The goat destroys the ram, representing Greece's overthrow of the Persian Empire. The first king, Alexander the Great, the large horn on the goat, is identified as the first king of Greece. After the great horn is broken, 4 horns rise to take its place, symbolizing the breakup of Alexander's empire into 4 distinct kingdoms ruled by his generals. The Medo-Persian Empire, 550 to 331 BCE, was a dominant ancient power formed by uniting the Medes and Persians under Cyrus the Great. It succeeded the Babylonian Empire, ruling from India to Egypt and modern-day Iran. Known for its efficient administration, postal system, and religious tolerance, it featured prominently in biblical history. The empire was formed when Cyrus the Great of Persia conquered the Medes in 550 BCE, merging the two groups into one ruling power, widely recognized as the Achaemenid Empire, 559 to 331 BCE. The Medo-Persian Empire is described in the book of Daniel as the chest and arms of silver, replacing Babylon, the head of gold. Cyrus the Great is noted for allowing the Jewish people to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Besides Cyrus the Great, rulers include Darius and Artaxerxes, also known as Osiris, who married Esther. Achaemenid Empire took its name from Achaemenius, an ancestor of Cyrus the Great. In Daniel 6, which occurs during the reign of Darius, the Mede, early Persian period, Israel had not yet rebuilt the temple. While Cyrus had allowed for a return, the actual rebuilding of the temple was stopped until Ezra 6 records Darius later issuing a definitive decree to complete the work. Daniel 6 takes place after Babylon fell to the Medo-Persian Empire, which occurs after the initial decree of Cyrus permitting return, but during a period when work on the temple was stalled. The temple foundations were laid, but construction was halted by opposing officials until Darius's later decree. The physical rebuilding, supported by Persian kings, is documented in Ezra 1 through 6, which run parallel in history to the events shortly after Daniel 6. Now, according to Daniel chapter 8, following Alexander the Great's death, his empire was broken, and 4 kingdoms rose from it, represented by the 4 horns that replaced the single great horn. These 4 Hellenistic dynasties were founded by his successors, his generals, known as the Diadochi. His generals were Cassander, who took control of Macedonia and Greece, Lysimachus, who controlled Thrace and parts of Asia Minor, Lysilicus, Nicator, who set up the Seleucid Empire, ruled Syria, Babylonia, and east of India, and final Ptolemy of Sciorder, who set up the Ptolemaic Kingdom, who ruled Egypt and Palestine. These were his 4 successors. According to Daniel 8, the little horn, identified as Antiochus Epiphanes IV, emerged from one of the 4 smaller horns, kingdoms, that replaced the great horn of the Grecian Empire. Specifically, he arose from the Seleucid Empire, which was one of the 4 divisions resulting from Alexander the Great's death. Daniel 8 describes a little horn growing out of one of the 4 horns that broke off the main Greek goat horn. That broke off from the Greek goat horn, which represents a ruler from a specific part of the Greek Empire, Antiochus, persecuted the Jews, stopped the sacrifices, and desecrated the temple of Jerusalem. Some interpretations, notably historics, argue the little horn in Daniel 8 represents the Roman Empire in both its pagan and papal stages. Again, Daniel 8 describes a little horn growing out of one of the four horns that broke off from the main Greek goat horn. To bring this to a crescendo, in Daniel 7, the four beasts represented successive world empires that dominated the ancient world and impacted in Israel. Again, in Daniel 7, the four beasts represented four successive world empires that dominated the ancient world and impacted Israel. 1. The first beast, the lion with eagle's wings, represented Babylon, 605-539 BC, which represents King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire, with the wings representing swiftness of conquest. The second beast, the bear, represents the Medo-Persian Empire, who ruled 539 to 331 BC, represented as a lopsided, one side higher, to signify the stronger Persian influence in the Medo-Persian alliance, with three ribs in its mouth, devouring much flesh, indicating its conquest of Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. Or as we just read, it dominated westward, northward, and southward, are the metaphors for the three ribs. And third, the third beast, the leopard with four wings and four heads, represented the Grecian Empire, or Greece, which ruled from 331 to 146 BC. Symbolizes Alexander the Great's rapid conquest, the four wings, and the eventual division of his empire into four parts among his generals, the four heads. In closing, the fourth beast, the terrible beast with iron teeth, which represents the Roman Empire. This empire is described as stronger and more destructive than the others, featuring 10 horns, which represents 10 kings or kingdoms, and a little horn with human eyes representing a blasphemous power. The 10 horns on the fourth beast represent 10 kings or kingdoms that will arise from the fourth kingdom. They symbolize a divided coalition of power, often interpreted as a revived Roman Empire or a future global government that will exist shortly before the return of Jesus Christ. Now, the political structure says that the horns signify 10 rulers or entities that arise out of the final ferocious fourth kingdom. The 11th horn, which is described to be the Antichrist, Another horn, a little horn, emerges after them, which is different from the first 10. The 11th horn, which is said to be the Antichrist, another horn, a little horn, emerges after them, which is different from the first 10 and uproots 3 of them, seizing control. These 10 horns are frequently interpreted as parallel to the 10 toes on the image in Daniel 2 and the 10 horns on the beast in Revelations 17:12. Some scholars interpret these as historical Seleucid kings, while evangelical commentators view them as a future revived Roman-related empire.